Everyone looked at Yi Futian with some envy. The palace lord was the palace lord for a reason. This woman was unusual, and her appearance was second to none. It seemed that the palace lord might be having a new addition in his household. Yi Futian would not know anything these guys were thinking. He looked at the woman in white, thought for a moment and said, "You descended from the great emperor, and were born from the small world. Let's call you Ling Long One." "Ling Long," the woman in white muttered, then nodded slightly to acknowledge it. She did not have any opposing opinion, feeling that the name Yi Futian gave her was very comforting. Yi Futian's words explained the origin of the woman in white, which greatly startled everyone around him. She was descended from the great emperor, and was nurtured and born in the small world? If so, this woman indeed had an extraordinary origin. "Don't gather around here, go cultivate," Yi Futian said to everyone, then walked forward, and towards the palace that was at the highest point. Yi Futian came to the cultivation area behind the palace, where Hua Ji was cultivating. When she saw that Yi Futian was back, she stood up as Yi Futian came to her side. He touched her long hair and asked, "How do you feel?" "I feel that my cultivation has reached a bottleneck," Hua Ji said with a smile. The bottleneck she spoke of was the realm of near deity, which she could not advance for a long time. "There is no hurry. Rest for a while and get yourself balanced," Yi Futian said. Hua Ji nodded, and at this moment, she turned her attention toward the woman in white, who was behind Yi Futian. She saw Ling Long standing quietly behind Yi Futian, whose beautiful eyes fell on Hua Ji as if to assess her. Seeing this, Hua Ji had a strange look on her face, but then she looked at Yi Futian with a smile. Yi Futian also felt a little awkward. This image was accurate. Beautiful. Ling Long, the name I just gave her, is someone I met in the Relic of the Gods. She's a descendant of the great emperor, born out of the supreme will, and have merged with my will to a certain degree. So I brought her back here, Yi Futian explained. When Hua Ji heard Yi Futian's words, she looked at Ling Long with great interest. She was born out of the great emperor's will? Who is she? Ling Long looked at Hua Ji as well, and asked Yi Futian. Yi Futian didn't know quite how to answer her, but Hua Ji couldn't help but smile and reply, "My name is Hua Ji, and I am his wife." Wife? Ling Long didn't seem to have a good grasp on this concept. Yi Futian explained, "That means we are together." Yi Futian felt a headache coming on. It seemed that he had to do some brainwashing on Ling Long. "Don't resist," Yi Futian said. Then the divine light dazzled upon his body, as strands of golden divine light surrounded Ling Long's body and entered through her brow chakra. Suddenly, countless information began to pour into Ling Long's mind. So Ling Long closed her eyes and began receiving them quietly. After a long while, Yi Futian stopped and saw that Ling Long's eyes were still closed. He took Hua Ji's hand and led her towards the sleeping quarters. As soon as the door to the backyard was opened, Yi Futian felt something behind him. He turned around and saw Ling Long was following behind him. Yi Futian looked at her and blinked, asking her, "What are you doing here?" "I'm following you. I'll be wherever you'll be." Ling Long repeated what Yi Futian said earlier. Yi Futian rubbed between his brows and said, "Just go sit there and digest the memories I gave you earlier, and don't disturb me without my order." There was some puzzlement in Ling Long's eyes. Why did he change what he said? But still, she obeyed Yi Futian's command and sat down quietly, acting obediently. Next to him, Hua Ji watched all this with a brilliant smile. The woman that Yi Futian brought back was behaving much like a child. Yi Imperial Palace was extremely quiet, and everyone was busy cultivating to improve their strengths. Yi Futian had been guarding Ling Long ever since he brought her back. After all, Ling Long's strength was too powerful. If there were an accident, her destructive power would be equally terrifying. Over the past few days, he had been transmitting all kinds of memories to Ling Long and helping her to acclimate to this world. He had passed the situation of the entire cultivation world into her memory, and Ling Long was digesting them quickly. Her mind had been opened, and she was now an actual living being in all sense of the words. Her cultivation was powerful, and her ability to lean was astounding. She was getting to know the world at an extremely rapid speed. In addition, Yi Futian would also practice sparring with Ling Long. At this time, in the cultivation court located at the very top of Yi Imperial Palace, a terrifying divine matrix lit up. There were terrifying and violent sounds that could be made out vaguely. Even a monstrous fighting will press down and broke through the defense of the divine matrix, shrouding the entire Yi Imperial Palace. What was more astonishing to those around it was that this will neither belong to Yi Futian nor Hua Jiyu. Then, it could only be from the woman in white who was brought back by Yi Futian. Was she fighting the palace lord? Was it a real fight, or just a sparring session? In the cultivation court, the dull and muffled banging sounds rang out continuously, like thunderous explosions. Hua Jiyu stood on one side as her beautiful eyes looked at the two figures in front of her. Yi Futian and Ling Long were in a head-to-head confrontation, and neither evaded the other in the slightest. They directly attacked each other, and their exchanges were extreme. Yi Futian was overwhelmed and submerged by a supremely horrific fighting will. He felt as if he was facing a god from heaven who was invincible. The oppression of his spiritual will was incredibly frightening. Bang! With a loud boom, Yi Futian was knocked out into flying. After he landed, he slid backward and only managed to stop himself after a few moments. He stared straight ahead and let out a long breath. He said with a smile, "Awesome. Haven't used my full power yet," Ling Long said as she looked at Yi Futian without even a little bit of courtesy. Yi Futian was taken aback by surprise and said to her, "Did no one tell you the virtue of humility during your studies these days?" Ling Long nodded and replied, "But for you, it was not necessary." "That's harsh," Yi Futian said. "Shall we continue?" Ling Long said lightly, her eyes falling on Yi Futian. "Rest," Yi Futian said, then stepped forward as he came to Ling Long's side. "You must have already digested everything that was passed on to you and learned from it. You must understand the world a little better now." Ling Long nodded. "Next, I want to tell you where you come from, and why you are following me," Yi Futian said. Hearing his words, Ling Long had a strange look on her face as she said, "You can choose not to tell me." After learning quite a bit on her own, she guessed that she might have been under the control of Yi Futian, hence her being here. Therefore, she didn't feel the pressing need to know the truth. "No, you have already developed your unique personality, and you have the right to know everything," Yi Futian said. "Don't resist." As he spoke, the light between his brow chakra began to shine, and suddenly images of many memories converged and entered between Ling Long's eyebrows. These were precisely the memories of what he had gone through in the forbidden zone of the gods, except for some of the things that happened between him and Donghuang Diyuan. Everything about Ling Long was in those memories. Ling Long closed her eyes, and it didn't take long for her to open her eyes again. Her beautiful eyes fastened on Yi Futian. "Did you see everything?" Yi Futian asked. Ling Long nodded. "I didn't have any choice before, or else you might have killed me in the forbidden zone. In any case, it is indeed my will that was integrated into the will of the great emperor, so that you have a part of my will, and you were affected by me. But now that you have an independent self-awareness, I will not hide it from you," Yi Futian said. "Now, you will have to choose your path and give yourself a name." Ling Long looked at Yi Futian, then looked up at the divine matrix in the void, and said, "If what I want to do is not in line with your will you use the divine matrix to get rid of me?" "If had that kind of thoughts, I wouldn't have allowed you to learn any of this. I brought you here to prevent you from being out of control. After all, your strength is far too strong, and the threat is too great. Even now, if you want to do something to me here, I will have no choice but to activate the divine matrix to deal with you," Yi Futian continued. "But you can leave, and whatever you want to do in the future is your choice." "Hypocrite," Ling Long said as she stared at Yi Futian. "Huh." Yi Futian was stunned. Who was she calling a hypocrite? He thought he was being honest. At first, he did want to control Ling Long, but then he discovered that Ling Long was not a puppet, but a real individual. She would lean by herself, and sooner or later, she would understand everything. "You know my being contains part of your will, which means that I, standing here now, have part of your personality, and yet you pretended to ask me to leave. What is that if not hypocrisy?" Ling Long looked at Yi Futian and questioned him pointedly. Yi Futian was stupefied for a moment. He looked at the woman and thought her learning ability was just a little too astounding. Ling Long looked at Yi Futian calmly and continued. Ling Long sounds like a good name. I think I'll use it for now. Ling Long also has the meaning of being delicate and well-formed. Ling Long decided to stay. Just as she said, she had retained part of Yi Futian's personality, and this connection was not something that could be separated. After familiarizing herself with the world of cultivation, Yi Futian began introducing divine methods into her cultivation. Previously, whenever Ling Long attacked, she was limited to using only the will itself. After cultivating the divine methods, she could only be stronger than ever before. Many times, Hua Ji would accompany Ling Long in cultivating together, so that Yi Futian had some time to take care of his own cultivation and training. Yi Futian didn't expect to return so soon this time, so he concentrated on his cultivation. He and Hua Jiyu had both encountered a bottleneck and could not overcome it. However, Yi Futian did not waste time. If he couldn't make any breakthrough in the realm, he would focus on comprehending divine methods and practice sparring with Ling Long. He was constantly improving in strength. Before anyone knew it, several years had passed. In the past few years, many people in Yi Imperial Palace managed to break through their realm of cultivation and advance one step further. The same was true of the outside world. This continent of relics seemed to bring something brand new every day, and changes were happening all the time. After a few years, who knew how many cultivators had appeared in this place? At the same time, some subtle changes had been gradually taking place on this continent of the gods. Over the years, cultivators everywhere had been stationed in the ruins occupied by the Imperial Palace, and began settling down on this continent of ruins. However, as this continent of gods was a new world, people from each world began to covet the areas already occupied by the other worlds as more ruins were being excavated. There were endless battles of pillaging that started to occur regularly. Moreover, this kind of battle was originally small-scale battles scattered among various forces. But with time, there had been collisions between the forces from different realms. After all, before this continent of ruins appeared, there had already been a large-scale war in the Divine Prefecture. Opposing attitudes had, in fact, already been established, but the appearance of the relics of the gods attracted the attention of all the worlds, and everyone focused on exploring the gods' relics and the excavation of the ruins instead. However, more than a decade had passed, and most of the ruins had been occupied by top principalities. The entire continent of the ruins had morphed from a state of chaos to a state of relative peace. But now another kind of chaos was beginning to emerge again. On this day, Yi Futian did not cultivate. He came to the territory occupied by the Devil World. He traveled through the void and looked at the demonic halls built below. The architectural style of their severity and color were similar to those in the capital of the Devil World. Even the sky in this region was obscured, as the demonic will had colored the sky. This vast and endless area had become another devil world. Some demonic cultivators seemed to sense something as they raised their heads to look in Yi Futian's direction. Some even released their demonic thoughts to scan the area, but they were all repelled by Yi Futian's aura. Some people recognized him and wondered what Yi Futian was doing here. Yi Futian walked forward and came to the former city of the Karura ruins. The place had changed a lot now. It was completely different from before. The former city of the Karura ruins had turned into a demonic city. Even the shrine of the Karura in the distance had toured into a majestic demonic palace, towering into the sky. The pitch-black demonic clouds tossed and turned above the firmament, as if being nurtured by the terrifying light of tribulation, utterly frightening. An even stronger demonic thought swept over him. But once it detected that it was Yi Futian, no one stopped him. After all, no one didn't know the relationship between Yi Futian and Yu Sheng. The cultivators of the Devil World had no likes or dislikes to speak of regarding this first man of the original realm. But the cultivators of the Devil Imperial Palace were polarized on Yi Futian. Some people approved of him and Yu Sheng, but then some thought that as Yi Futian was not a demonic cultivator, Yu Sheng was getting too close to him for comfort. They were worried that Yu Sheng might even be willing to sacrifice the interests of the devil world for Yi Futian's sake. That nature-defying divine ruler was taken away by Yi Futian, for instance. Although it was taken by Yi Futian, in their opinion, it should have belonged to the devil world all the same. Yi Futian saw a familiar face at this time, the guardian of the devil world, Blood Raiment. When she saw Yi Futian, Blood Raiment immediately zoomed in on him. "TM looking for Yu Sheng," Yi Futian said with a smile. "Wait a minute." Blood Raiment glanced at Yi Futian, then walked in the direction of the demonic hall. After a while, Yi Futian felt a demonic thought directing his movement. With a sudden flicker of his figure, he appeared instantly in front of a demonic hall. Yi Futian looked at Yu Sheng, assessing the aura exuded from him, and said, "Still no breakthrough like me?" "Almost," Yu Sheng said. "But I encountered a bottleneck." Yi Futian nodded. "It is quite a hurdle to step into the near deity realm. And certainly it is not easy. Here are some elixirs, take them." In Yi Futian's current state, the elixirs he produced were even more excellent, and their grade had surpassed any ordinary elixirs in the second tribulation realm. They were somewhere between the second divine tribulation and near deity realm, with even purer quality. He gave them to Yu Sheng, hoping that it would benefit Yu Sheng's cultivation. Naturally, Yu Sheng would not feign politeness with Yi Futian, so he reached out and took them. He knew how just outstanding these elixirs refined by Yi Futian were, and that they would help him greatly in his cultivation. "I didn't think that 100 years would have gone by so quickly. The dreams that had when we were boys are getting closer now, and the truth is only a step away from being fully revealed. So why hasn't he appeared yet?" Yi Futian raised his head to look into the distance and said, "Why did he choose to take us into hiding in the lower worlds and cultivate there? He was the younger brother of the Devil Emperor by blood. Who am I? Most of the world would just treat him as the son of Emperor Yi Qing. Except, was it really as everyone else thought? Then there was also the excellence of the spirit to consider. Everything gave him a feeling that his adoptive father and some other people behind the scenes were setting something up, using him as the center of it all. It will not be much longer now," Yu Sheng said. They had cultivated to this point. They could already see the great emperorship from where they were. Then the truth must not be too far away either. As for he who had been hidden for so long, he must be getting closer to reveal himself. Yi Futian nodded slightly. What was waiting for them down the road? The two of them stood together without speaking. Only time would tell where these two would end up in the future. At this time, Yi Futian frowned. A voice appeared in his mind. The little condor was sending him a message. Yu Sheng turned to look at Yi Futian, apparently realizing a change had taken place within him. Something happened over there. There was a conflict between the cultivators of the dark world, Fang Xiyuan, and the others, Yi Futian said. "I need to go back." After that, Yi Futian's figure disappeared from where he was. He was using Buddha's celerity to make his way back as quickly as possible. Obviously, the matter at hand was more urgent. Seeing this, Yu Sheng's eyes sharpened. Then he took a great step outside. In the dark world, Yi Qingyao the Reaper held a very lofty position. Yu Sheng knew very well the relationship between Yi Futian and Yi Qingyao. So now, why was there a conflict between the dark world and the cultivators of Ziwei Imperial Palace? Prior to this, in the land of the Divine Prefecture, the dark world, the devil world, and the empty divine realm had fought with Yi Futian. Although Yu Sheng was not present at the time, he had heard of it. At this time, somewhere else in the God's Relic, many cultivators appeared in this area, and a mighty group of cultivators gathered around the outer periphery, looking at a specific place. There, an amazing aura of the Great Path had erupted, and a horrific battle took place there not too long ago. Furthermore, the battle had a very tragic outcome. A very important person had fallen there. Fang Xiyuan, Duo Yu, and Tai Tu stood together, with Little Condor and the others. They were all staring in the opposite direction. Over there, the cultivators from the dark world, with the terrifying aura of the Great Path surrounding this entire region, had locked down this area. Both Fang Xiyuan and Duo Yu held imperial arms, which puffed out terrifying divine light. On the side where the cultivators from the dark court were, there was a corpse lying on the ground, The body was pierced through and through. Several others had fallen, and were lying next to that body. All of them had been slain by Fang Xiyuan and Duo Yu's imperial arms. In front of the corpse in the middle, there were several cultivators from the Dark Court who were standing there, looking down at the corpse. They looked extremely unhappy. The person who died was an important figure in the Dark Court, a direct disciple of the Dark Sovereign, who Fang Xiyuan and Duo Yu killed. Hence the dire situation at hand. This space seemed particularly oppressive. The Dark Court and many of the cultivators from the Dark World had Fang Xiyuan and his group surrounded. Among them, there were some powerful beings. Infernal King, one of the 7 kings of darkness from the Dark Court, was also present. He was a peak existence of the second tribulation plane, and his cultivation was undeniably strong. There were also other peak figures on his side, but these cultivators from Ziwei Imperial Palace were tough to deal with. Their strengths were considerable. Otherwise, they would have been taken down already. What happened? At this time, a voice came from the void in the midst of a terrible atmosphere. It was another person from the Dark World, a giant figure in the Dark World no less, the clan leader of the Infernal Divine Clan. He had already survived the second divine tribulation of the Great Path many years ago. After the ruins opened up, he came to this side of the world and cultivated in the ruins with the rest of the Dark Court. Now he had stepped into the realm of near deity. Senior brother, the Infernal King called out. The Infernal King of the Dark Court came from the Infernal Divine Clan, and he was the younger brother of a pillar in the Dark World, the clan leader of the Infernal Divine Clan. The Infernal Divine Clan was said to originate from the Infernal Sovereign. The Infernal Divine Clan leader looked down and knew what had happened immediately. Those pitch-black eyes of his glanced at the cultivators of the Ziwei Imperial Palace, and a horrific aura erupted in an instant. The entire space turned into a world of pure inferno as a destructive storm raged between heaven and earth. In the sky above the clan leader of the Infernal Divine Clan, a dark infernal storm appeared. From the void downward, endless destructive light of catastrophe bloomed from this infernal storm, which shrouded all the cultivators of the Ziwei Imperial Palace. Fang Xiyuan's golden eyes swept up higher into the sky, and they were cold as ice. His body was suspended in midair as he held the imperial arms, the golden halberd, in his hand. Frightening light was coming out of the imperial arms as divine glory erupted from him. The light of catastrophe in the storm was unable to get any close to him, and was destroyed in the end. Humph! A cold snort was heard. The fight of cultivators in the near-deity realm was horrific. The vast space dimmed as darkness descended. The divine light of destruction enveloped the boundless space, as if it had turned into a world of an inferno. The dark infernal spear emerged from that dark storm, and carried the power of utmost destruction. It sliced through the void, instantly slammed into Fang Xiyuan's imperial arm. With a loud boom, the surrounding space seemed on the verge of destruction as infinite light of catastrophe appeared. Bang! The imperial arms in Fang Xiyuan's hand nearly got blown away. His body was blasted directly into the ground as his body sank deep into the earth. The ground beneath his feet was raised, and the light surrounding his body was being pulverized like mad. Even with the imperial arms, it was impossible to contend against true existence in the near-deity realm. With a muffled groan, blood spurted out of Fang Xiyuan's mouth, just as he was about to be killed on the spot. However, a massive divine bird appeared at this moment, spreading both its wings and entering into the storm, blocking the destruction that fell from the void. It was none other than the Karura divine bird, divine body of the demon monarch. Everyone stared over there with a look of surprise, and they saw that it was being controlled by the Black Condor. Greed flashed through the eyes of the cultivators from the Dark Court. They thought that these cultivators from Ziwei Imperial Palace were indeed full of treasures. However, they figured that these people were probably at the core of Ziwei Imperial Palace. The treasures at the Dark Court, on the other hand, were not plentiful enough that everyone could have gotten some. "You guys get back," the Infernal Divine Clan leader said to the cultivators from the Dark World. Suddenly, everyone retreated as they were told. An even more terrifying storm was gathering and turning into a domain of inferno. In this domain, there was only destruction. You asked for it. The infernal divine clan leader surveyed the cultivators of the Ziwei Imperial Palace in the area below. A terrifying phantom appeared above the sky, like the master who ruled the inferno. The infernal spear in his hand came down with a mighty force, and suddenly, a storm of destruction in the surrounding region pierced the void. In that destructive storm, infernal spears came out from everywhere, as if everything was about to be destroyed under this attack. Buzz! The will of the little condor took control over the Karura's divine body and spread its wings, covering this expanse of the space and protecting everyone below. In an instant, horrific attacks fell in a frenzy. Every one of them slammed into the gigantic body of the Karura. Below, the little condor spat out a mouthful of blood as his will were being impacted severely. There were even some faint signs of disintegration. Little condor! Fong Siyuan and the others had a look of disbelief on their faces as they looked at the little condor and told him, "Get out of the way. It's all right, I can hold it." Blood continued oozing from the corners of little condor's mouth, but he replied rather stubbornly. Fong Siyuan and the others were disciples of the boss, which meant that they were his subordinates. As their elder, how could he not protect them from harm? How was he going to explain that to the boss? The clan leader of the infernal divine clan surveyed the ground below. His eyes couldn't be more cold or indifferent. A murderous intent was blazing within him. Behind him, there were many cultivators from the infernal divine clan. A young man among them looked on coldly. Once upon a time, he had slaughtered heedlessly in the land of the 9 realms, and Yi Futian had threatened him. "Kill!" the clan leader of the infernal divine clan commanded. Still, almost simultaneously, a terrifying divine light suddenly came towards this direction from a distance, with extreme brilliance. A mighty and superior will shrouded the space, which significantly threatened the cultivators from the dark world. Its sword chi. Everyone who felt that terrifying aura trembled immensely in their hearts. In the next moment, the divine sword descended from the sky and slammed directly into the infernal space. The violent booming sounds were constant. The impacts inflicted cracks upon the space, which then shattered and pulverized. The divine sword of destruction now aimed to kill the clan leader of the infernal divine clan. A terrifying dark spear appeared in his hand as he lanced it out straight away. It collided with the divine sword. Suddenly, that shocking sword will dissipated into nothingness, but an even more terrifying aura swooped down from the air on its heel. Far into the distance, an unparalleled sword light arrived instantly with bad intention. It seemed a top cultivator had turned into a sword. It turned out to be the Supreme Sword Lord. He traveled by turning into a sword as he unleashed the divine sword in his hand. Instantly, Taishang's swordsmanship erupted. The divine light illuminated from it was blinding. The infernal spear, as wielded by the clan leader of infernal divine clan, stabbed out and collided with the divine sword. Suddenly, the sword will and the destructive spear flowed wildly in this space. Everything around them seemed on the verge of total collapse. "Get back!" Many cultivators retreated frantically. Other cultivators were penetrated by the raging storm and were killed instantly. Bang! The attack repelled the clan leader of the infernal divine clan. The infernal spear in his hand was exuding an astonishing aura, as it turned out to be an imperial arm as well. As the clan leader of the infernal divine clan, aren't you ashamed of bullying your juniors? The supreme sword lord's clothing fluttered in the wind with force, and his eyes swept towards the other like sharp swords. The two were giants in the divine prefecture and the dark world, but Supreme Sword Lord was already a near deity, and had long been a cultivator ranked on the demigod list. The clan leader of the infernal divine clan had break through his realm while he was in this ruins, so the realm of the Supreme Sword Lord was deeper and higher. Behind Supreme Sword Lord, the cultivators from Yi Imperial Palace had rushed here one after the other. Once they learned that Fong Siyuan and the others were in trouble, many cultivators in Yi Imperial Palace came to give them support as they descended successively. Divine body of the Karura disappeared, and the little condor was left looking a little tired. He stared at the cultivators from the dark world and said coldly, "Today I will get rid of the trash." "What's happening?" Old Ma asked Fong Siyuan, and the others when he came around. They all knew about the relationship between Yi Futian and Yi Qingyao. Now was not a good time for Yi Imperial Palace to make enemies, which meant they should not have a conflict like this with the Dark World. They wanted to rob our imperial arms and attacked us. Duo Yu and I killed a few people in the process, Fang Xiyuan replied, which caused Old Ma to frown. The cultivators from the Dark World were the ones to initiate the attack, and it was no less than to capture the imperial arms from them. The nature of this attack was malicious, and the equivalent of declaring war on Ziwei Imperial Palace. Fang Xiyuan's reaction was entirely expected, and it was not surprising that he killed those instigators. Do you know who was the person you killed? The Infernal King said coldly. Then he glanced at Supreme Sword Lord and the others, pointing to Fang Xiyuan and the others, saying, "These people must die." In the distance, terrifying auras continued to drift towards them, and the cultivators from the Dark Court had also arrived in the area. Surprisingly, even Hua Yunting, the Dark Saint, was among them. Saint! Many people bowed and saluted him. Hua Yunting's position in the Dark Court was very prestigious, ranking above the 7 kings, and equivalent to the demon sage of the Devil Imperial Palace. Hua Yunting glanced below to look at the corpse on the ground, and he did not look pleased. He had heard the conversation between them just now. He recognized that Ziwei Imperial Palace was no ordinary principality. Even as an imperial-level force, the Dark World was not afraid of Ziwei Imperial Palace. However, there was no need to make enemies out of them either, especially not when Yi Futian and the Divine Prefecture were sort of on opposite sides, and they could use Ziwei Imperial Palace as their allies. Yi Futian's talent was outstanding, and he had the best chance to prove his way to the imperial realm. In the future, it might even be possible for him to pose a threat to Donghuang the Great, so there was no need to make a break with him. More importantly, Yi Qingyao and Yi Futian enjoyed an excellent relationship. So in his opinion, Yi Futian could embark on the road of emperorship, and there was no need to hinder him. But now such a violent conflict had occurred. Glancing at the corpse, he thought that this matter would not end well. At this time, a figure suddenly appeared in this space without anyone being aware of it, as he just appeared out of the ether. Yi Futian. Many people's eyes sharpened instantly, as they focused on the white-haired young man who appeared. It seemed that he already knew what happened here, and he arrived here with all due speed using Buddha's celerity. Yi Futian sensed everything that had happened here from the little condor. The cultivators from the Dark Court took action against Fang Xiyuan and the others, intending to rob them of the imperial arms, which was why Fang Xiyuan raised his hand against the offenders. Although it was a little impulsive of him, the other party was responsible for instigating the attack. Therefore, they were in the right to defend themselves by striking back. Yi Futian, the Dark Sage said to him, "What do you want to do about it? This matter was getting to be a little thorny. Since you have chosen to take action, strength will determine the outcome. What else can be done?" Yi Futian swept his eyes over the group, headed by the clan leader of the Infernal Divine Clan, and said, "Are you the one who took action?" As he was speaking, he glanced at the cultivators from the Infernal Divine Clan. When he saw that young man, he remembered some of the things that happened in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. Back then, the Infernal Divine Clan had wreaked havoc in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, but because of his background, Yi Futian was unable to do anything about the young man. Yi Futian once promised that he would kill the other man if given the chance, but because of the subsequent changes in the world, he never got around to do it. Now, unexpectedly, the Infernal Divine Clan had once again provoked him. Infernal Divine Clan leader was an incredible figure, and a giant of the Dark World. Even Infernal King of the Dark Court was his junior. He was now at the near deity plane, and had obtained a dark divine arm. His abilities were powerful, yet Yi Futian, a junior, dared to talk to him in such a manner. Although he knew that Yi Futian was very powerful, for the latter to act so presumptuously before him, wasn't he being overconfident? "Sword Lord, I will leave this to you," Yi Futian said to Supreme Sword Lord. "All right," replied the latter as he nodded his head. He admired Yi Futian's attitude. If they did not show their might, Others would take them to be pushovers. No matter which force it was, if they had made a move to snatch another person's imperial arm, it was considered a declaration of war. What more needed to be said to those who attempted to kill someone and steal their imperial arm? There was naturally nothing that needed to be discussed. They would speak with their fists. Futian extended his hand, and the divine ruler immediately appeared. His entire body shone with brilliant divine light. He was a sight to behold. Buzz! Sword will burst forth from the figure of Supreme Sword Lord and envelop the region below. The cultivators of Ziwei Imperial Palace were enveloped inside his sword will. The cultivators in the distance also wisely retreated. They would be in grave danger if they were near a battle of this level. Dark Saint Huayenting frowned. Matters seemed to have escalated out of control and had become very bad. If the Dark Court began fighting with Futian, it was clearly a lose-lose situation. Neither side would benefit from this. However, Futian was fully prepared to attack. The situation was already beyond their control. In the heavens above, increasingly terrifying destructive will burst forth. The world seemed to become purgatory. In this space, flowing dark currents contained frightening destructive will. They were capable of killing anyone who touched them. Countless dark currents circled around the body of infernal divine clan leader. This caused the region where he stood to turn hideous and terrifying. The currents were like countless tentacles. They then immediately grabbed out at Futian down below. Behind Futian, there suddenly appeared a dazzling yin-yang diagram. This diagram instantly expanded. Emerald green divine light circulated within it. The diagram released the terrifying power of yin and yang that shone on the dark currents. In an instant, the constant currents sweeping towards Futian were reduced to dust. Tumble! A dull thud could be heard. Destructive dark spears traversed across the sky and charged towards Futian. They plummeted straight towards their target like countless beams of destructive light. It was as though doomsday had befallen this region. Futian extended his arm, and an enormous wheel of space appeared. It radiated unparalleled divine halos and engulfed all the incoming spears. Infernal Divine Clan leader revealed an astonished look when he saw this. The wheel of space, which could swallow everything, was gigantic. It was akin to a black hole, sucking his attacks into another space and causing them to dissipate without a trace. Buzz! Suddenly, Infernal Divine Clan leader detected a strong sense of danger. He thrust his spear downwards, and it collided with the divine ruler that was charging towards him. The divine ruler was as sharp as a sword. T's terrifying power sent the clan leader flying upwards uncontrollably. Sword will overwhelmed the space and flooded his body. The clan leader snorted. His body emanated dark divine light to negate the power of the sword will. However, now, Futian's body disappeared from his sight. This is bad. The facial expression of the clan leader changed drastically as he immediately ordered, "Retreat!" Rumble! There was a dull thud as the domain that enveloped the region was penetrated. Futian's figure immediately pierced through it. Infernal Divine Clan leader looked towards Futian, and his expression was extremely ugly. The next moment, he saw Futian stabbing out at the various cultivators of the Infernal Divine Clan. The cultivators of the Infernal Divine Clan revealed shocked expressions. Futian had broken through the domain of a near-deity cultivator. They released their most powerful auras of the Great Path. Even the youth, who had massacred people in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, had a look of terror in his eyes. This sword directly pierced across the space. Everywhere the sword will passed over, figures fell out of the sky. They perished on the spot. When the cultivators in the distance saw the cultivators of the Infernal Divine Clan perish one by one, they were astonished. Futian was exterminating the Infernal Divine Clan. The youth was not dead. Futian had spared him, but he was still standing before the youth and staring at him. "Save me!" The youth pleaded as he looked towards Infernal Divine Clan leader. "Futian, you attacked the members of my clan?" said Infernal Divine Clan leader in a voice as cold as ice. Futian ignored him. He extended his palm and placed it on the other party's head. The youth showed no signs of resistance. "I said that you would pay with your life," said Futian as he stared into the youth's eyes. A terrifying divine fire burst forth from his palm. In an instant, the youth was consumed by the divine flames. They seared through his body and burnt his spiritual soul into a crisp. The youth let out agonizing screams. His body was slowly disintegrated by the divine flames and was reduced to nothingness. Everyone was shocked at Yi Futian's methods. He had killed off the young clan leader of the infernal divine clan so brutally. His methods were ruthless and decisive, showing no signs of mercy. Infernal divine clan leader's facial expression was extremely ugly. Murderous intent filled the sky as terrifying destructive will encapsulated the vast space, turning it into purgatory. Yi Futian's gaze was serene. He did not seem concerned at all. He turned towards infernal divine clan leader calmly and said, "Did you not consider that I would do this when you attacked my disciple?" Before Yi Futian's arrival, infernal divine clan leader attacked Feng Xiyuan and Duo Yu to kill them. If it weren't because Little Condor protected them with the help of the divine body of Karura, they would most likely have perished. Since the clan leader showed Feng Xiyuan and Duo Yu no mercy, Yi Futian would not hesitate to do the same. Moreover, there were old grudges between Yi Futian and Infernal Divine Clan. He had no reason to spare them. With a strike, Yi Futian directly eradicated all the cultivators from the Infernal Divine Clan. The members of other top forces from the Dark World felt their hearts tremble violently as they witnessed the scene. Yi Futian showed no sign of fear when facing the Dark Court and the Infernal Divine Clan, one of the Dark World's top forces. He had no scruples about massacring the members of the Infernal Divine Clan. This caused the crowd to be fearful of him. They had to consider the consequences carefully before they decided to attack Yi Futian. If they couldn't kill him on the spot, he would certainly take his revenge on them in the future. Yi Futian pointed the divine ruler at Infernal Divine Clan leader. A few years ago, Yi Futian was targeted by Xinyan Buddha Lord when he was about to leave Yi Imperial Palace. He then slaughtered the latter in their fight. Now, he had no reason to fear Infernal Divine Clan leader. The latter wielded an imperial arm, but so had Xinyan Buddha Lord back then. He wielded a Buddhist divine sword, yet he still perished. Right at this moment, the sky in the distance dimmed. An even more menacing aura permeated the space. Many people looked in that direction. Their hearts palpitated frenziedly. The cultivators, who stood at the peak of the Dark Court, had arrived. Dark Saint's heart also throbbed as he looked in the direction where the aura came from. He had an uneasy feeling. He vaguely sensed something. The incoming person was crowned the next divine saint before Yi Qingyao had joined the Dark Court. At the same time, in a different location, Yuxing also reached this place. There was also a peerless beauty dressed in white. It was unknown when she had also arrived in this region. Yi Futian sized up the people who had arrived. The leading cultivator had an unfathomable aura on him. He stood there, his vibe similar to that of the Dark Lord. An ethereal aura emanated from his figure, giving off a very powerful, threatening will. Yi Futian had never met this person before. The other party had not participated in the battle in the Old Heaven Court. Back when the Devil World was at war with the Divine Prefecture, the Dark World had merely assisted. They did not send their strongest members. Yi Qingyao later joined the battlefield, but this person had not appeared before. Although Yi Futian had never met him before, he could guess the status of this person in the Dark Court, just by looking at his imposing manner, as well as the large group of cultivators behind him. Yi Futian had come in contact with the top cultivators from the various worlds. Ji Wudao had great Skylords Black and White Almighty as guardians. Donghuang Diuan was also accompanied by top-tier cultivators. The Empty Divine Realm had Duga Wuxia, and the Devil World had Yin Giyi and so on. Before this, he had encountered Dark Saint Hua Yenting from the Dark Court. However, Hua Yenting was not their strongest figure. He was still far lacking. Rumor has it that the most powerful figure aside from the Dark Lord in the Dark Court was Lord Shaman. He was the great shaman, and the leader of the three Dark Sages. Legend has it that Lord Shaman was the second disciple of the Dark Lord. He had been a disciple of the Dark Lord for a very long time. Back then, the head disciple was similarly outstanding with extraordinary talent. He was peerless, and his status in the Dark Court was exceptional. His personality was kind and compassionate. He guided his younger brothers in their cultivation. However, it was precisely this that cost him his life. In the dark world, kindness was taboo. It went against the path of darkness. In the end, this head disciple was killed by his younger brother, Lord Shaman. The latter took everything he owned and inherited his position. The Dark Lord had silently acknowledged all that had transpired. Since then, Lord Shaman became the heir of the Dark Court and the leader of the 3 Dark Sages. The disciples after him neither dared to contend with him nor attack him. Someone had tried to do so before, and the consequences were tragic. Currently, Lord Shaman was already a giant-level figure. He was the mightiest person in the Dark Court aside from the Dark Lord. Even Dark Flame Sage and Dark Saint posed no threat to his position. This was the status quo until Yi Qingyao appeared in the Dark World. She was known as the Dark Maiden and was later given the title the Reaper. The Dark Lord treated her as though she was one of his own disciples. He even forbade everyone in the Dark Court from harming her. Because of this, Yi Qingyao managed to survive in the Dark World and could keep on growing. If she did not have the special protection of the Dark Lord, she wouldn't have been able to survive at all. Lord Shaman greeted the cultivators of the Dark Court. When they saw Lord Shaman arriving, they all frantically bowed to him and acted very polite. They were very respectful towards him as they all feared him. Even his younger brothers felt the same. Lord Shaman was extremely ruthless in his ways. Back then, even his elder brother, who had taken extra good care of him and trained him, had been killed by him. One could imagine what sort of cultivator he was. The world did not doubt that he would even kill the Dark Lord and take his place if he was powerful enough. The Dark Lord himself was well aware of this fact. Averthless, this was originally the law of survival in the Dark World that he had established. Lord Shaman greeted Infernal Divine Clan leader. Then, even an extraordinary cultivator like Infernal Divine Clan leader was bowing towards Lord Shaman. The Dark World was different from the Divine Prefecture. The Dark Court's authority was absolute. For the Dark World forces, they usually did not need to worry about the Dark Court on a day-to-day basis. However, no one dared to disobey orders when the latter sent down orders. No one could bear the consequences of doing so. Hence, the cultivators of the various forces of the Dark World had profound respect towards the Dark Court. Lord Shaman was accustomed to receiving such reverence from the crowd. He swept a glance at the corpse, and it slowly floated upwards. Bring younger brother's body back to the Dark Court, and bury him in the graveyard of the Divine Mountain, Lord Shaman commanded. Yes, sir, responded one of the cultivators who stood behind him as he stepped forward to retrieve the body. Lord Shaman fixed his gaze on one of the cultivators from the Dark Court. His eyes glistened with terrifying crimson light. His presence was undoubtedly scary. Lord Shaman, the cultivator cried out. He was a Renhuang, but he revealed a look of intense fear when his eyes met with Lord Shaman's. You followed younger brother. He has perished in battle, yet you are unscathed. Why are you still alive? As soon as Lord Shaman said this, his menacing crimson gaze penetrated space and pierced the eyes of the Renhuang. The Renhuang let out a blood-curdling shriek as blood oozed out from his eyes. 2 beams of crimson light shot into his pupils and punctured his brain. It was a frightening scene to behold. Arg! The Renhuang covered his eyes with his hands. Blood tainted his fingers red. He looked miserable. His body was shaking uncontrollably, as though he was experiencing the cruelest torture in the world. He felt as though his spiritual soul was being torn apart from his body. He could see many gruesome scenes flashing before his eyes as he was drowned in the crimson eyes of Lord Shaman. His past experiences replayed in his mind. Splat! The crimson lights seared 2 holes through the Renhuang's brain. The dreadful torture had finally ended for the cultivator from the Dark Court. He collapsed to the ground, and his blood flushed the ground red. The surrounding space turned exceptionally quiet. Even though the person Lord Shaman killed was just a Renhuang, it still impacted everyone around greatly. The way the Dark Court cultivators handled things was indeed ruthless. Lord Shaman acted so cruelly when punishing his own underlings. One could imagine how much more savage he would be when he faced his opponents. From the looks of it, things were sure to turn ugly today. The first thing this great shaman from the Dark Court did upon arrival was torture a member of his court to death. How would he possibly let the cultivators who killed his younger brother leave here alive? When Dark Saint Hua Yenting saw this scene, he knew things had taken a turn for the worse. Lord Shaman was putting on a show of force. Capture everyone who was involved in the murder of younger brother, ordered Lord Shaman in an indifferent tone. He said this with a commanding voice, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Yes, Lord Shaman, responded several cultivators of the Dark Court behind him as they stepped forward. They were all cultivators who had survived the divine tribulation of the Great Path. They had come forward to arrest those involved. He was going to capture all those involved in the death of his younger brother. That included Fang Xiyuan, Duoyu, and the others. Fang Xiyuan raised the golden halberd in his hand and pointed it at Lord Shaman. The golden halberd unleashed astonishing murderous intent. Fighting will circled his figure. Fang Xiyuan was originally an extremely unruly person. He would not surrender just like that. Duoyu's gaze was similarly as cold as ice. He raised the long spear in his hands. His eyes became bizarre and frightening. They were the eyes of samsara. Kill anyone who attacks us without mercy, Yi Futian ordered as he looked at Fang Xiyuan and the others. Yes, master, replied Fang Xiyuan. Supreme Sword Lord was also beside him. Sword will circled his figure and enveloped the space. His aura was extremely astonishing. When the cultivators of the Dark Court saw this scene, all of them took a few steps forward. A terrifying dark aura was released. It covered the sky, and in an instant, the sky was dyed black, plunging the world into darkness. The sky turned dark. Yi Futian sized up the people who had arrived. The leading cultivator had an unfathomable aura on him. He stood there, his vibe similar to that of the Dark Lord. An ethereal aura emanated from his figure, giving off a very powerful, threatening will. Yi Futian had never met this person before. The other party had not participated in the battle in the Old Heaven Court. Back when the Devil World was at war with the Divine Prefecture, the Dark World had merely assisted. They did not send their strongest members. Yi Qingyao later joined the battlefield, but this person had not appeared before. Although Yi Futian had never met him before, he could guess the status of this person in the Dark Court, just by looking at his imposing manner, as well as the large group of cultivators behind him. Yi Futian had come in contact with the top cultivators from the various worlds. Ji Wudao had great Skylords Black and White Almighty as guardians. Donghuang Diyuan was also accompanied by top-tier cultivators. The empty divine realm had Duga Wuxia, and the devil world had Yin Giyi and so on. Before this, he had encountered Dark Saint Hua Yenting from the Dark Court. However, Hua Yenting was not their strongest figure. He was still far lacking. Rumor has it that the most powerful figure aside from the Dark Lord in the Dark Court was Lord Shaman. He was the great shaman, and the leader of the three Dark Sages. Legend has it that Lord Shaman was the second disciple of the Dark Lord. He had been a disciple of the Dark Lord for a very long time. Back then, the head disciple was similarly outstanding with extraordinary talent. He was peerless, and his status in the Dark Court was exceptional. His personality was kind and compassionate. He guided his younger brothers in their cultivation. However, it was precisely this that cost him his life. In the Dark World, kindness was taboo. It went against the path of darkness. In the end, this head disciple was killed by his younger brother Lord Shaman. The latter took everything he owned and inherited his position. The Dark Lord had silently acknowledged all that had transpired. Since then, Lord Shaman became the heir of the Dark Court and the leader of the three Dark Sages. The disciples after him neither dared to contend with him nor attack him. Someone had tried to do so before, and the consequences were tragic. Currently, Lord Shaman was already a giant-level figure. He was the mightiest person in the Dark Court aside from the Dark Lord. Even Dark Flame Sage and Dark Saint posed no threat to his position. This was the status quo until Yi Qingyao appeared in the Dark World. She was known as the Dark Maiden, and was later given the title the Reaper. The Dark Lord treated her as though she was one of his own disciples. He even forbade everyone in the Dark Court from harming her. Because of this, Yi Qingyao managed to survive in the Dark World and could keep on growing. If she did not have the special protection of the Dark Lord, she wouldn't have been able to survive at all. Lord Shaman, greeted the cultivators of the Dark Court. When they saw Lord Shaman arriving, they all frantically bowed to him and acted very polite. They were very respectful towards him as they all feared him. Even his younger brothers felt the same. Lord Shaman was extremely ruthless in his ways. Back then, even his elder brother, who had taken extra good care of him and trained him, had been killed by him. One could imagine what sort of cultivator he was. The world did not doubt that he would even kill the Dark Lord and take his place if he was powerful enough. The Dark Lord himself was well aware of this fact. Regardless, this was originally the law of survival in the Dark World that he had established. Lord Shaman greeted Infernal Divine Clan leader. Alright then, even an extraordinary cultivator like Infernal Divine Clan leader was bowing towards Lord Shaman. The Dark World was different from the Divine Prefecture. The Dark Court's authority was absolute. For the Dark World forces, they usually did not need to worry about the Dark Court on a day-to-day basis. However, no one dared to disobey orders when the latter sent down orders. No one could bear the consequences of doing so. Hence, the cultivators of the various forces of the Dark World had profound respect towards the Dark Court. Lord Shaman was accustomed to receiving such reverence from the crowd. He swept a glance at the corpse, and it slowly floated upwards. Bring younger brother's body back to the Dark Court and bury him in the graveyard of the Divine Mountain, Lord Shaman commanded. Yes, sir, responded one of the cultivators who stood behind him as he stepped forward to retrieve the body. Lord Shaman fixed his gaze on one of the cultivators from the Dark Court. His eyes glistened with terrifying crimson light. His presence was undoubtedly scary. Lord Shaman, the cultivator cried out. He was a Run Huang, but he revealed a look of intense fear when his eyes met with Lord Shaman's. You followed younger brother. He has perished in battle, yet you are unscathed. Why are you still alive? As soon as Lord Shaman said this, his menacing crimson gaze penetrated space and pierced the eyes of the Run Huang. The Run Huang let out a blood-curdling shriek as blood oozed out from his eyes. 2 beams of crimson light shot into his pupils and punctured his brain. It was a frightening scene to behold. Arg! The Run Huang covered his eyes with his hands. Blood tainted his fingers red. He looked miserable. His body was shaking uncontrollably, as though he was experiencing the cruelest torture in the world. He felt as though his spiritual soul was being torn apart from his body. He could see many gruesome scenes flashing before his eyes, as he was drowned in the crimson eyes of Lord Shaman. His past experiences replayed in his mind. Splat! The crimson light seared 2 holes through the Run Huang's brain. The dreadful torture had finally ended for the cultivator from the Dark Court. He collapsed to the ground, and his blood flushed the ground red. The surrounding space turned exceptionally quiet. Even though the person Lord Shaman killed was just a Run Huang, it still impacted everyone around greatly. The way the Dark Court cultivators handled things was indeed ruthless. Lord Shaman acted so cruelly when punishing his own underlings. One could imagine how much more savage he would be when he faced his opponents. From the looks of it, things were sure to turn ugly today. The first thing this great shaman from the Dark Court did upon arrival was torture a member of his court to death. How would he possibly let the cultivators, who killed his younger brother, leave here alive? When Dark Saint Hua Yenting saw this scene, he knew things had taken a turn for the worse. Lord Shaman was putting on a show of force. Capture everyone who was involved in the murder of younger brother, ordered Lord Shaman in an indifferent tone. He said this with a commanding voice, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Yes, Lord Shaman, responded several cultivators of the Dark Court behind him as they stepped forward. They were all cultivators who had survived the divine tribulation of the Great Path. They had come forward to arrest those involved. He was going to capture all those involved in the death of his younger brother. That included Fang Xiyuan, Duo Yu, and the others. Fang Xiyuan raised the golden halberd in his hand and pointed it at Lord Shaman. The golden halberd unleashed astonishing murderous intent. Fighting will circled his figure. Fang Xiyuan was originally an extremely unruly person. He would not surrender just like that. Duo Yu's gaze was similarly as cold as ice. He raised the long spear in his hands. His eyes became bizarre and frightening. They were the eyes of samsara. Kill anyone who attacks us without mercy, Yi Futian ordered as he looked at Feng Xiyuan and the others. Yes, master, replied Feng Xiyuan. Supreme Sword Lord was also beside him. Sword Will circled his figure and enveloped the space. His aura was extremely astonishing. When the cultivators of the Dark Court saw this scene, all of them took a few steps forward. A terrifying dark aura was released. It covered the sky, and in an instant the sky was dyed black, plunging the world into darkness. The sky turned dark. Many cultivators were retreating away from the suppressive and terrifying space. They sensed that the battle was about to begin. It was not safe for a battle of this magnitude to be within a range of 1,000 miles, let alone the surrounding regions. No one knew how far the aftershocks would reach if these two cultivators unleashed their powers without holding back. However, most top cultivators would hold themselves back slightly when fighting. As the crowd retreated, their gazes were still fixed on the battlefield. They were very concerned about this storm. This was a battle between the Dark World and the Ziwei Segmentum. Now, Ziwei Imperial Palace had become one of the top forces aside from the Emperor-level forces. It was a superpower that had surpassed the ancient god clans. It could even be considered the number one force aside from those Emperor-level forces. Several years ago, this point had been proven in the Old Heaven Court. The members of Ziwei Imperial Palace had fought against the various cultivators of the Heaven Realm. After that battle, the world knew that Ziwei Imperial Palace's power was only second to that of the Emperor-level forces. Even if the Dark Court wanted to take them down, it wouldn't be an easy feat to pull off. Moreover, Yi Futian's group had the backing of the heir of the Devil Emperor, Yu Sheng. He had received the teachings of the demonic lord. Several years ago, he had a short exchange with Ji Wudao in the Old Heaven Court. His ability was astonishing. With such a background, the Dark Court did not necessarily have the advantage, unless Yu Sheng did not participate in the battle and did not use the will of the demonic lord. Most likely, no one from Ziwei Imperial Palace could stand against Lord Shaman. The great shaman of the Dark Court was the strongest figure of the Dark Court aside from the Dark Lord. He was the leader of the three Dark Sages. No one knew how powerful his abilities were now. However, without a doubt, he would be among the strongest aside from the great emperors. Show no mercy, said Lord Shaman as he slowly swept a glance at Yi Futian when he heard the latter speaking. There was a condescending look in his crimson pupils. He then looked at Supreme Sword Lord. Supreme Sword Lord, you are a cultivator from the Divine Prefecture. This does not concern you. You have cultivated for so many years. Why get swept into this mess now? I will give you the chance to leave, said Lord Shaman nonchalantly. His words contained a cold and sinister aura that caused the surrounding people to feel uncomfortable. Although Supreme Sword Lord had gained fame in the Divine Prefecture many years ago, and was a powerful cultivator on the near-deity list, he did not have confidence that he could defeat the great shaman if pitted against the latter. Then, I should be thanking you, Supreme Sword Lord replied as he glanced back at Lord Shaman with a faint smile. Who did Lord Shaman think Supreme Sword Lord was? Even though Supreme Sword Lord was not an heir of an Emperor-level force, he was a near-deity-level existence who had been renowned for many years. In terms of seniority, he was above Lord Shaman. Now, the other party was speaking to him in such a manner, and giving him the chance to leave? Supreme Sword Lord was old, but his sword was still sharp. Lord Shaman naturally understood Supreme Sword Lord's meaning. He did not say any more. His figure gradually floated up into the sky. His black robes danced in the wind. He extended both his hands, and immediately, the dark will in the sky ran amok. It was as though the end of the world had truly come. It was extremely terrifying. Furthermore, there were countless streaks of crimson light of catastrophe flashing amidst the dark storm. The appearance of the lights of catastrophe was unpredictable. It was as though the lights were a natural part of the storm. Many cultivators felt their spiritual souls trembling, even though they were merely standing beneath the aura. Run! They lost interest in witnessing the battle as they swiftly took to their heels. Other cultivators might still consider onlookers while they were engaged in battle. However, this was Lord Shaman from the Dark Court. Would he care? Rumble, Rumble. Rumble. Terrifying collisions reverberated in space. Many crimson stone pillars suddenly plummeted onto the ground, sealing this vast region off. At the same time, a blood-red altar appeared in the sky. The entire domain turned into an altar of sacrifice. The place was enveloped by darkness. Lord Shaman stood on the altar like an almighty god, as he looked down on Yi Futian. There was contempt in his gaze. He roared, "Vermin, you are but a chess piece of the various forces. Yet you dream of defying the gods and changing your fate. You do not know your place." His voice could be heard far and wide, and it reverberated in everyone's eardrums. He was absolutely domineering. Many cultivators were astonished. In the eyes of Lord Shaman, Yi Futian was merely an ant? The latter was just a chess piece. Yi Futian also looked up at the other party. Lord Shaman's ability was already at the peak of the near-deity plane. He was similar to first demon sage Yangi and Duga Wuxia. He was among the strongest figures aside from the great emperors. Once this crimson altar appeared, the other party controlled this domain. Was Yi Futian an ant? Of course not. Was he a chess piece? In a sense, Yi Futian was indeed a chess piece. The dark world, the devil world, and the empty divine realm all treated him like one. They used him to check and balance the divine prefecture. They didn't even mind letting him grow stronger to the point that he could threaten Donghuang the Great. Back when the original realm was being thrown into chaos, these emperor-level forces from the other worlds had spared Ziwei Imperial Palace. If they had chosen to eradicate Ziwei Imperial Palace at that time, the latter would most likely not have been able to withstand their attacks, and would have perished. Therefore, it was not wrong for Lord Shaman to say that Yi Futian was a chess piece. However, if that was the case, who was the mastermind behind the scenes? Was it the Dark Court and the empty divine realm? The real mastermind most likely would not be so easily identified. "If I wanted to take your life, I could do so anytime I want," continued Lord Shaman. Even though Yi Futian's ability now was already exceptional, the latter still made such a statement. As he said this, bolts of crimson lightning descended within the dark domain like lights of catastrophe. They were like the power of judgment from heaven that could destroy everything in the world. Buzz. Powerful sword will burst forth from the divine sword in Supreme Sword Lord's hand. A sword realm immediately enveloped the cultivators of Ziwei Imperial Palace around him. If this power came crashing down on them, ordinary cultivators would not be able to withstand it. They would perish to the crimson lightning. "Is that so?" Yi Futian raised his head and glanced at Lord Shaman. Then he said, "Today, I shall see for myself how you plan to take my life." Just when everyone thought Yi Futian would dive into battle with Lord Shaman, the former turned around to look at the white-robed lady, who was standing behind him. This caused many people to raise their eyebrows in puzzlement. "Do you want to test out the results of your recent training?" Yi Futian asked Ling Long. Yi Futian believed that she would surely sharpen her skills with Lord Shaman, the most advanced cultivator in the Dark Court, as her opponent. After all, in Yi Imperial Palace, Ling Long was unrivaled. Now Yi Futian had found her an opponent that didn't seem too shabby. "All right," replied Ling Long as she nodded her head. Then, she stepped forward and walked towards where Lord Shaman stood. This caused the various cultivators to reveal strange expressions. Not only was Yi Futian not fighting himself, he actually sent out a woman to fight on his behalf. This woman dressed in white had an extraordinary temperament. Her appearance was outstanding. No one recognized her, and they had never seen her before. However, even if she was extraordinary, Yi Futian asked her to deal with Lord Shaman? Wasn't that tantamount to suicide? Chapter 2743 Situation. Chapter 2743 Situation. Lord Shaman saw a woman in white charging towards him. His eyes emitted terrifying crimson divine lights. With a wave of his hand, endless crimson divine lights of judgment appeared in the sky and descended towards Ling Long. She would be killed on the spot if she touched any of the divine light. Rumble. A shocking fighting will burst forth from Ling Long's body. The will shot up high into the sky and covered the entire region instantly. At this moment, the white-robed figure before Lord Shaman transformed from a maiden to a war god. This aura, thought Lord Shaman. His eyes narrowed as his facial expression changed slightly. Endless crimson divine lights of judgment rained down on Ling Long. The fighting will circled around her body. It was as though she was garbed in the armor of a war god. The crimson divine lights actually could not penetrate through her fighting will. Ling Long continued to pounce towards Lord Shaman, who was standing on the altar in the sky. This scene caused the spectating cultivators to narrow their eyes in astonishment. What was going on? How could this maiden be so dominant and powerful? As far as they were concerned, Lord Shaman's cultivation plane was already at the peak of the near-deity level. The divine power of the great path that he controlled was uniquely his. If a two-tribulation cultivator were hit by his crimson divine light, even they would likely perish on the spot. However, Lord Shaman's crimson divine light actually had not managed to break through the defense of the maiden. One could imagine the might of her fighting will. Who was this woman dressed in white? Ling Long flew higher into the sky, and soon she approached the altar. She extended her fist and sent out an attack. Her punch appeared ordinary, yet it contained frightening Tiantian fist will. Bang! 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 The blood-red altar was smashed into pieces in the blink of an eye. It crumbled right away after coming in contact with the aggressive fist will. It was as fragile as glass when faced with the woman's overwhelming fighting will. The fist will even continued charging upwards. It crashed into the crimson domain. A dull rumbling could be heard. The entire domain nearly collapsed instantly. Lord Shaman's figure appeared high in the sky. He had dodged the previous attack. A fighting will enveloped his figure as he stared at his opponent. The fighting will, which circled around the woman dressed in white, seemed to be a great emperor. Lord Shaman's will shifted, and an even more terrifying aura immediately burst forth. In the menacing blood-red space, destructive divine lights of judgment flowed all around. In his hand, a crimson scepter appeared. It was a highly mighty imperial arm that emanated powerful will. The cultivators below felt their hearts thump non-stop. With one attack, the woman in white forced Lord Shaman to take out his imperial arm. Clearly, Lord Shaman brought out his imperial arm because he suspected that he might not be able to withstand the other party's attacks with his ability alone. This woman in white was actually formidable to such an extent. It is the scepter of dark judgment, someone commented. The hearts of the various cultivators trembled violently when they saw the scepter that Lord Shaman was wielding. This imperial arm was a precious treasure of the Dark Court. It had always been the weapon used by the great shaman of the Dark Court, and was passed down from generation to generation. Since Lord Shaman was the current great shaman, and the head of the three dark sages, this scepter of dark judgment was naturally under his control. He extended his arm and pointed the scepter to the heavens. The color of the sky changed instantaneously. An even more frightening blood-red storm stirred up in the space. When the crowd raised their heads, they could see a menacing vortex swirling above them. This vortex seemed capable of eradicating all living beings. Nothing could survive once they were sucked into it. Vast many people could feel that even their spiritual souls were quivering in fear. Their hearts beat frenziedly. They continued to retreat backward. They wanted to stay as far away from the storm as possible. No one could predict how terrifying Lord Shaman's next attack would be. Bang! With a crisp crack, the domain was shattered. It was as though the entire sky had transformed into the dark domain. The sky split open, and the crimson divine light that radiated from the scepter of dark judgment shot up into the high heavens. The power it emanated seemed to be summoning an apocalypse. The scene was too shocking to behold. Rumble! The sounds of thunder reverberated throughout the space. The next moment, myriads of crimson divine light rained down from the sky, with the momentum to smash the entire world into pieces. A beam of extraordinarily bright crimson divine light stood out amidst the densely packed lights. It coalesced into the shape of a sword as it charged towards Ling Long. Ling Long acutely sensed the power exerted by the divine light. Fighting will burst forth frenziedly from her body. She extended her palm, and immediately countless divine swords surged towards the incoming attack. This technique that she was demonstrating was taught to her by Futian. He guided her to better utilize her power in her attacks. Bang! The crimson lights and the divine swords collided in the sky. The sky ruptured as the entire space shook violently. Destructive divine lights rampaged. However, even after making such a ruckus, Lord Shaman's attack failed to touch Ling Long. After she sent out her palm strike, she leaped into the sky and flew towards Lord Shaman. It seemed like she wanted to engage in close combat with the other party. Many cultivators below were not so lucky. Some of them did not manage to escape in time, and were crushed by the destructive blow. Some less competent cultivators were incinerated when the crimson divine lights rained down. Their spiritual souls were reduced to dust, perishing on the spot. They had no means to defend themselves. Any cultivators who had yet to reach the tribulation plane did not stand a chance once such a high-level attack hit them. Yi Futian took a glance at the battle happening in the sky. He was well aware of how capable Ling Long was. Even with the help of an imperial arm, Lord Shaman might not be a match for her. Over the past few years, Yi Futian had verified her ability countless times. Therefore, Yi Futian was not worried about the outcome of their battle. He shifted his gaze towards where Infernal Divine Clan leader stood. A moment ago, Yi Futian had slaughtered everyone from his clan. Aside from this clan leader, everyone else was dead. Yi Futian would finish what he started. He had no reason to let the clan leader escape. Divine light circled Yi Futian as his aura locked onto Infernal Divine Clan leader. The latter also sensed this. He retracted his gaze from the battlefield in the sky. He looked towards Yi Futian as murderous intent circled him. He also had not imagined that Yi Futian had such a terrifying existence, like the woman dressed in white on his side. She could fight Lord Shaman, who was wielding an imperial arm, unarmed. Her combat ability would rank among the strongest beneath the great emperors. Such an individual was taking orders from Yi Futian. In that case, the situation today would be disadvantageous to them. The direct disciple of the Dark Lord has been killed. Why aren't all of you attacking? Infernal Divine Clan leader said as he looked at the cultivators from the Dark Court, as well as the various forces of the Dark World. Dark Saint Hua Yenting was also very powerful, and the Dark Court still had many cultivators who could join the battle. Dark Saint frowned when he saw that matters had spiraled out of control. As he had predicted, things had indeed gotten out of hand. No one knew how this battle would end. Buzz! Just as Infernal Divine Clan leader said this, a sense of danger suddenly loomed over him. Yi Futian's figure instantly charged forward. Divine light circled around the jade-green divine ruler. He charged directly at the clan leader. It was as though Yi Futian had become a divine sword that could pierce through all powers of the Great Path and destroy all spiritual souls. The power of the Great Path furiously burst forth from his figure. Everywhere the divine light passed over, everything was reduced to dust. From Yi Futian's figure, Infernal Divine Clan leader sensed certain death. Chapter 2744 Slaying Yet Another Near Deity. Chapter 2744 Slaying Yet Another Near Deity. Yi Futian's figure disappeared from where he stood. When he appeared once again, he instantly descended upon Infernal Divine Clan leader. The divine ruler stabbed out like a sharp sword, and was extremely domineering. The clan leader never imagined that Yi Futian would actually attempt to kill him in close combat. The long spear imperial arm in the former's hands similarly stabbed forward. The two terrifying powers clashed, and an astonishing storm was swept up. Buzz! Yi Futian's figure disappeared again. Around Infernal Divine Clan leader, there suddenly appeared many exterior incarnations of Yi Futian. Dazzling jade-green divine light circled each of them. All of them seemed to possess the power of the divine ruler. These incarnations also seemed to never stop moving. More and more of them appeared, filling up the space around the clan leader. "This is a movement technique," said someone down below, as they looked up at the battlefield in the sky. Yi Futian not only possessed the Buddhist technique celerity, but he also cultivated movement techniques. He seemed to have millions of incarnations. No one could tell which was the original. The top forces knew that back in the relic of the old heaven court, Yi Futian had obtained many divine stones that contained divine techniques. Had Yi Futian cultivated this technique from them? Unbeknownst to them, this movement technique was not anything special. However, when used in conjunction with celerity, it became very powerful. No one could pinpoint where Yi Futian's true body was at all. Nevertheless, against top cultivators, it was meaningless to merely be proficient in movement techniques. Behind Infernal Divine Clan leader, a frightening gray silhouette of a god appeared. A dark domain enveloped the surrounding area. Dark infernal fire appeared in the entire domain. Fire engulfed the entire sky. Black lotuses blossomed from the flames and consumed the power in the surroundings. Terrifying infernal fire attempted to consume the incarnations of Yi Futian. However, the incarnations seemed to surround the area and made the space an absolute domain. The sky was filled with jade-green divine light that blocked out the sun. Yi Futian's phantasms were everywhere. Suddenly, the blinding light of Buddha pierced through the darkness. His incarnations became ancient golden Buddhas. All of them possessed indestructible golden bodies. The sound of Buddha reverberated across the sky. The power of the 6 syllables of truth circulated in the area. When the infernal fire descended on the figures of the ancient Buddhas, the fire was actually purified and extinguished. The infernal lotuses in this domain of space similarly withered. They seemed to be sealed by this domain. "It is a domain!" exclaimed various cultivators as they looked up at the region. Up until moments ago, the incarnations took the form of Yi Futian. Suddenly, they became various Buddhas who filled the skies. Even more frighteningly, their figures were slanted and formed a ring above Yi Futian and Infernal Divine Clan leader. The light of Buddha shone brightly, and a gigantic Buddha Lord silhouette appeared. Bang! Menacing sounds reverberated as all the Buddhas unleashed all Heaven Buddha's seal at the same time. Their palm strikes coalesced into a single Buddha's seal and headed straight towards Infernal Divine Clan leader. Palace Lord has grown stronger, Lord Chen thought as he observed the battle from the ground below. After a few years of cultivation, Yi Futian's ability had further improved. Even though he had yet to break through the shackles of the plane, he had a more profound understanding of his techniques. Rumble. The clan leader raised his imperial arm. Immediately, infernal storms were whipped up in space. Destructive spears materialized from the eyes of the storms and shot out towards different directions. Each of them targeted a different part of the incoming Buddha's seal. A loud collision echoed in space. The spear hit the Buddha's seal. The latter covered the entire sky and countless symbols of one were carved on it. It radiated with the dazzling light of Buddha. Its momentum pushed Infernal Divine Clan leader slightly downwards. However, countless cracks appeared on the Buddha's seal when the power stored in the imperial arm exploded upon collision. Then the seal disintegrated. The very next second, an intense killing intent permeated the space around the clan leader. A divine sword charged directly towards him from the heavens above. It was the heaven-slaying divine sword. The awe-inspiring sword slashed its way downwards. Infernal Divine Clan leader retaliated head-on with his spear. This time, the momentum of the enormous divine sword pressed down on the clan leader, causing him to slide down uncontrollably. "Get lost!" barked Infernal Divine Clan leader as power frenziedly burst forth from his body. He was enveloped by a dark infernal storm. Endless dark currents twirled around the divine sword. The clan leader had activated his imperial arm to its utmost limit. "Presumptuous," a voice rebuked loudly. The thunderous voice echoed in the mind of the clan leader. This sonic wave attack blasted his spiritual soul directly, as it was laced with the spell power. The clan leader stared blankly at the heavens above. Then he saw a pair of terrifying eyes. The pupils were jade green in color. The power of the divine ruler, which Yi Futian devoured a few years ago, seemed to have perfectly merged with his own great path. It was now flowing in every single part of his body. Even his eyes contained its power. The clan leader activated his eye sorcery, and his eyes emitted divine lights. Terrifying will burst forth from his jet black eyes. The infernal god appeared in the eye sorcery zone forged by the clan leader, and it swooped towards Yi Futian along with the dark divine power. Yi Futian gathered the power of the divine ruler in this very eye sorcery zone of his opponent. The infernal god then entered into a complete world. Yi Futian was the god of this world, and his face formed the sky. He transformed into a Tianshan and appeared directly in the zone. As his divine ruler slashed down, Its power was akin to the heavenly rule power. It was capable of eradicating all the paths in the world. This is bad. Infernal Divine Clan leader noticed that things had taken a turn for the worse. He frantically swung his imperial arm and destroyed the heaven-slaying divine sword. Clearly, he realized that Yi Futian had transferred the power of the divine ruler into countering his eye-sorcery. However, the clan leader did not have an imperial arm in his own eye-sorcery zone. How did Yi Futian manage to pull this off? In the eye-sorcery zone of the clan leader, the divine ruler overcame all resistance and slayed its way downwards. Infernal Divine Clan leader unleashed a majestic might to withstand against it. But his effort was in vain as the divine ruler still penetrated through all things and stabbed into his body. He let out a dull groan. His will was severely injured. His eyes were shut tight as his body tumbled backwards. Buzz! A beam of dazzling divine light immediately pierced through the sky. Under the watch of countless astonished gazes, Infernal Divine Clan leader's body trembled violently in the domain. The phantasm of a divine ruler penetrated his figure. His will as well as his flesh had been struck and penetrated by the divine ruler. Yi Futian did not stop there. The crowd saw beams of jade-green divine light constantly flashing as they pierced his opponent's figure again and again. Finally, a divine ruler materialized and stabbed through Infernal Divine Clan leader, pinning him to the domain. A near deity had perished in such a manner. He had been brutally murdered in battle. Chapter 2745 Betraying the Dark Court? Chapter 2745 Betraying the Dark Court? He killed a demigod. The cultivators stared in shock at the scene in front of them. If not many people had been aware, when Yi Futian killed Xinyan Buddha Lord, the killing of the clan leader of the Infernal Divine Clan this time around had been witnessed by many powerful parties. The battle between the Dark Court and Ziwei Imperial Palace previously had already attracted many interested parties. Yi Futian had effortlessly killed a giant of the Dark Court, the Infernal Divine Clan leader, even when he had the help of Imperial arms. The Dark Court's Infernal King was also stunned by what he had just seen, and stared dumbfoundedly at the corpse that had been pierced to death by the divine ruler. His senior had been a powerful, dominating figure in the dark world, and had ruled over the Infernal Divine Clan. He was regarded as a giant in the dark world, akin to the clan leader of the ancient god clan from the Divine Prefecture. After the god's continent had surfaced, he had achieved demigod status, obtained imperial arms, and was on his way to greater glory. Yet now, he had been killed by Yi Futian, and Yi Futian had stolen his thunder. Some had watched Yi Futian kill Xinyan Buddha Lord previously. In comparison to that occasion, Yi Futian had had a much easier time killing the Infernal Divine Clan's leader today. The difference in abilities between the both of them was substantial. Yi Futian seemed to have perfectly harmonized the power of the divine ruler, and his current battle prowess ranked him as one of the strongest cultivators in the world. One probably had to be in the ranks of the strongest demigods to defeat Yi Futian, examples being Lord Shaman, Yan Gi, Di Hao, and more. After Yi Futian had killed Infernal Divine Clan's leader, he had taken the other's infernal spear. He put it away after glancing at it. He had returned Xinyan Buddha Lord's Buddhist divine sword to the Buddhist sect after killing him, but he naturally would not return the weapon to the Dark Court this time around. This was to be a spoil of the battle. Dark Saint looked at the white-haired figure. Even for the Dark Court, the number of people who could go up against Yi Futian could be counted on one hand, while probably only Lord Shaman could be confident of getting the upper hand against him. Dark Flame Sage, and he might not even be able to do either. After all, Infernal Divine Clan's leader had been a demigod, and was more or less on the same level as them. However, Lord Shaman, the strongest warrior in the Dark Court after the Great Emperor, did not seem to even have the advantage in his current battle. You could even say he was the underdog. He had been on the losing side ever since the battle started. That woman in white had firmly subdued the great shaman of Dark Court. The battle of the duo moved from the ground to the high skies. Lord Shaman was constantly on the retreat and battered. An extremely terrifying scene appeared above the sky. Lord Shaman held the scepter of dark judgment in his hands, and aimed it straight up at the sky. A spine-chilling black divine light immediately pierced through the sky and penetrated the area. Ever since the appearance of the gods' continent, the essence of the relics had spread to and enveloped the original realm, causing the sky over the original realm to fortify and become hard to break through by even the strongest cultivators. Yet at this moment, the scepter of dark judgment had just broken the sky, resulting in a horrifying black hole. Black divine light gushed in from the opposite side, causing the entire upper sky to turn dark. The sky was pitch black against the shocking blood-red light of the scepter. An enormous figure emerged from within the darkness. He looked like a divine being, and was Lord Shaman transformed. He's borrowing the powers of the gods. The cultivators of the dark court felt their hearts race. Looking toward the darkness, several altars had appeared there, and the transformed Lord Shaman was in the center of them. These altars seemed to have come from the dark world. Above the sky, what sounded like ancient ritual chanting emerged from the darkness. B. The cultivators of the dark court were nervous as they witnessed all these happenings. To think that Lord Shaman had been forced by the woman in white to the extent that he had to summon the dark deity through ancient sacrificial rituals. This was even the first time they had seen Lord Shaman resort to such means. He had never done so a single time before. Be careful, many people on the ground muttered. They were all on high alert at the frightening vibes they felt from the sky. Although the battle had relocated higher up, those on the ground still trembled in fear. Darkness shrouded the entire area, and the people on the ground were becoming anxious. The aura that seeped out was too terrifying, as if the dark deity himself had come to destroy the whole world. Kill! From above the sky, the chanting voices called out this chilling command, and hundreds of millions of blood-red divine lights descended into the darkness, as if the powers of dark judgment were hanging from the sky. Be careful! Someone shouted from below. They had all felt an intense, threatening sensation. Futian appeared in the sky above the cultivators. He stretched out his hands, and the intimidating wheel of space formed over him. The blood-red divine lights rained down in a flash, and Futian felt that it seemed like even the wheel of space was not able to devour the force of their attacks, and would be penetrated. The lights had already made a hole in the wheel of space, and now aimed for him. Boom! The jade-green divine light in Futian's body glowed brightly, and energy from the great path continued gushing rapidly into the wheel to intercept the black lights of judgment. Other areas, however, were not as fortunate. Except for where the strongest cultivators were, many cultivators had been stabbed by the blood-red judgment lights and died on the spot. They had no chance to retaliate at all. Even the cultivators from the dark court had to defend themselves against the force of the attacks. They were startled by what was happening. No one knew if it was a good thing that the dark court got embroiled in this battle. Things had quite gotten out of hand. They looked toward where the attacks of the judgment lights were concentrated, and saw the woman in white release a monstrous fighting spirit. She was girded with a war god's armor, and though the judgment lights fell upon her, they could not get past her defense, and were shut out. However, the attack had shown itself a threat. What are you doing? Just then, a few figures emerged from within the darkness, and came over to the area. Many people looked over to where the voice came from. Beneath the blood-red divine lights, one could vaguely make out yet more arrivals from the dark court, with their leader shockingly being the Reaper. As usual, she was cloaked from head to toe and gave off an intense air of mystery, as nobody knew her real appearance. You arrived just in time. The cultivators from Ziwei Imperial Palace have killed our younger brother, and the leader of the infernal divine clan. Go and avenge them, Lord Shaman commanded Yi Qingyao, and the others who were there as he looked down to the ground. Be calm/be death will emanated from and surrounded Yi Qingyao's body. It was immensely threatening, but it did not head toward Yi Futian and the rest. Instead, it went to where Lord Shaman was. Stop. Yi Qingyao's words caused Lord Shaman to frown. He replied, You intend to betray the dark court for old friends. Chapter 2746 on Opposing Sides. Chapter 2746 on Opposing Sides. Lord Shaman was the great shaman of the dark court, second in place only to Dark Lord, and was held in high esteem within the Dark Court. Everyone considered him the heir of Dark Lord. However, he had never become complacent. He was keenly aware that he had slowly but surely arrived at his current position. Even if he had conspired to assassinate his big brother in the past, Dark Lord had not punished him harshly despite being furious. After killing his big brother, he had become the first in line behind Dark Lord. He knew Dark Lord's ambitions, and held him in high regard as his master. Dark Lord desired to see darkness encapsulate the land and fall on the entire world. He wanted every corner of the world to be living in darkness, without rules, and without order. Therefore, the Dark Court itself was also anarchy, not constrained by rules and order. It advocated the survival of the fittest. The cultivators in the Dark Court all had unique personalities, and Lord Shaman knew that he and his master were similar types of people. He had been practicing the dark arts all along, and had always strived to do his best to obtain his master's approval. This was probably the only dream that he had been passionate about since he was young. Yet he had never achieved it even once. He thought the Dark Lord had no favorites. He desired a world of darkness with no standards and order. Then Yi Qingyao showed up. Yi Qingyao was destined to be in the darkness from birth. She was called the new child of darkness and belonged here. Master Dark Lord had high hopes for her, and Lord Shaman understood why. The Dark Lord knew that Yi Qingyao was a person capable of bringing darkness into the world. However, what Lord Shaman could not accept was how differently Master Dark Lord treated Yi Qingyao compared to the others. His master had never been concerned about anyone. Still, he would take excellent care of Yi Qingyao, granting her many privileges, to the extent that no one in Dark Court dared to lay a finger on Yi Qingyao. Someone once did and faced tragic consequences. Due to this apparent preferential treatment, many in the Dark Court felt that Yi Qingyao was the appointed heir of the Dark Lord, and the true child of darkness. Even if she had been snatched from Yi Futian, the master had not minded in the least, as if he firmly believed that she would eventually bring about darkness to the world. Thus, Yi Qingyao's position was unshakable in the Dark Court. Her status was equal to the 3 dark sages, and superior to the possessor of the Dark Throne, and many other top cultivators. Of course, Yi Qingyao did not let Dark Lord down. She was definitely born of the dark. In contrast to the other cultivators, she could already endanger the lives of those on the level of the Runhuang Plain, without a need to train. Some people said that she was the reincarnation of the Reaper. There were many rumors about Yi Qingyao in the dark world. The majority did not even know that she was female, but only knew that the cloaked, mysterious child of darkness would bring darkness and death into the world. Yi Qingyao was given the title of Reaper. Lord Shaman was jealous of Yi Qingyao. No one would guess that the leader of the 3 sages, the great shaman of the Dark Court, would ever be jealous of anyone, as he was so highly ranked. Yet all that had happened today was due to his jealousy. This was not a coincidence, but orders he had sent out led to the conflict breaking out between the Dark World and Ziwei Imperial Palace. He wanted the people of Dark World to find out where Yi Qingyao's heart really lay, especially his master. She did not belong to the darkness. Yi Qingyao exposed a pair of jet-black eyes from under her cloak. She looked up at Lord Shaman. She was known as the Child of Darkness, and she did indeed have an extremely dark side to her. However, for her, Yi Futian was the only light. If the Dark Court wanted to take down Yi Futian, she would stand on the side of her only light, and not belong to the darkness anymore. You can continue. Yi Qingyao's voice was cold. She actually asked Lord Shaman to continue. She then looked at the surrounding cultivators and stated, "All those from the Dark World are not allowed to lift a finger." Lord Shaman stared at Yi Qingyao upon hearing her words. Her raspy voice had an unmistakable command, and the cultivators were perturbed by it. "As the great shaman of the Dark Court, I command all of you. Show no mercy to anyone of Ziwei Imperial Palace. Kill them all," Lord Shaman said coldly. His voice rang through the area, and he continued, "Yi Qingyao, you too have to obey the will of darkness." As he was speaking, he held out the scepter of dark judgment. The blood-red divine light shone down, as if he represented the will of darkness. The cultivators of the Dark World were caught in a dilemma. They never expected such a situation to happen. The great shaman of the Dark Court, Lord Shaman, had pitted himself against the Reaper. If they went by ranking, the great shaman would take precedence. Only the Dark Lord ranked above him, and he placed first in the Dark Court. As for their skill levels, the same applied. Even Dark Flame Sage and Dark Saint, the remaining two of the three Dark Sages, were no match for him. However, his opponent was Yi Qingyao, who everyone in the Dark Court knew was the current favorite of the Dark Lord, and who would possibly become his future heir. Not too long ago, Yi Qingyao inherited the will of Azura. Even if they left out the possibility that she would become the future Dark Lord one day, she was still a challenging opponent that not many would be able to handle. How could they pay the price of angering Yi Qingyao? Dark Flame Sage and Dark Saint were also present and felt somewhat awkward. It seemed like Lord Shaman held a rather large grudge against Yi Qingyao. Rifts were inevitable given how both of them were heirs of the Dark Court, and it was up to anyone's guess how things would turn out in the future. Seeing no one move to carry out his order, Lord Shaman felt embarrassed. Numerous blood-red beams of light rained down, and he coldly commanded again. "Did no one hear what I said?" As he finished speaking, lights of judgment fell from the sky, and all at once, many cultivators from the Dark Court and Dark World stepped out. They were naturally afraid of Lord Shaman. They were no strangers to his ways and figured that if they disobeyed him, they might not be able to make it out alive. In addition, their death would have been meaningless. "You'll die if you dare move." Yi Qingyao spat out a warning in a chilling voice. As she spoke, a strand of death will enclose the area, and the cultivators who had stepped out sensed a strong aura of death. At that moment, they knew that going against Yi Qingyao meant that they would die on the spot upon activation of her will. They froze mid-step, stuck in limbo. The surrounding cultivators were also stunned by what they had just seen. Who would have thought that the two giants of the Dark Court would end up being on opposing sides? Chapter 2747, A Stubborn Personality. Chapter 2747, A Stubborn Personality. Kill them. Lord Shaman ordered a second time. A murderous intent enveloped the cultivators from the Dark World. It seemed as if they would be killed immediately if they did not obey his orders. Poor things. The watching cultivators all felt sorry for those from the Dark World. They were stuck having to choose between two impossible choices. One was the Great Shaman, and the other the Reaper. Both were people they could not afford to offend. Both were people capable of killing all of them. Die if you do. Die if you don't. The options available to them all led to death with zero chance of surviving. But truthfully, even if the strongest cultivators of the Dark World agreed to help out in the battle, would they be good enough to kill Yi Futian? Seeing how things stood currently, it was a tall order. The Dark World may have more cultivators, but going by overall prowess, Ziwei Imperial Palace did not lose out at all. The woman in white could take on Lord Shaman by herself, and even force Lord Shaman to summon the help of a deity to keep up with her. Aside from Lord Shaman, who else could take on Yi Futian? The leader of Infernal Divine Clan had been killed not long ago. Perhaps the other two of the three Dark Sages? But would Dark Flame Sage and Dark Saint follow Lord Shaman's orders? Besides, Ziwei Imperial Palace also had Supreme Sword Lord on its side. And if that was not enough, Yu Sheng from the Devil World was also lying in wait for a prime opportunity. In this battle of the finest, who was stronger? In this setting, just what could the cultivators of the Dark World possibly do to kill Yi Futian? Yet Lord Shaman had given this order. His objective was not to kill Yi Futian, but to drive those from the Dark World to their graves. The spine-chilling blood-red light was already shining upon the cultivators of the Dark World. Some moved, causing Yi Qingyao to react, but Yi Futian stopped her. "Allow me, Qingyao." He could see that Lord Shaman and Yi Qingyao were not on good terms, probably because Yi Qingyao had shaken Lord Shaman standing in the Dark Court. Yet even before he had lifted a finger, the cultivators who stepped out were blanketed from head to toe in the death will. Their rigid bodies dropped straight down to the ground. There was no chance of survival, and they died immediately. What on earth? Many of the cultivators turned to look at Yi Qingyao in shock. The death will was horrifying, able to kill without a trace. They had not even seen Yi Qingyao lift a finger, and those who walked out were already dead. Their lives were taken. Just what kind of ability was this? The Reaper. They recalled Yi Qingyao's other name. She had been given the name of Reaper. And seeing what just happened, she certainly lived up to her name. Yi Futian was surprised too. He had not thought that Yi Qingyao would have reacted so quickly. These people were not a threat to him at all. The reason Lord Shaman had been so adamant on them going up against him was so that Yi Qingyao would be forced to make a move, and in so doing, reveal whose side she was on. She would then be branded as a traitor of the Dark Court. Lord Shaman could then use that against her. Yi Qingyao's actions had undoubtedly given Lord Shaman something to hold over her. As expected, on seeing Yi Qingyao make a move, Lord Shaman's eyes glowed blood red as he stared at the cultivators below who had been killed. Yi Qingyao, I see you had no qualms betraying the Dark Court for an outsider. Yi Qingyao's expression beneath her cloak was calm as can be, without any perturbation, but she did not defend herself. She definitely could not have made a move, but she did and killed those people. Lord Shaman wanted to force her to pick a side. She could have decided not to pick one, but she did, letting everyone know where she stood. If she had to choose between the Dark Court and Yi Futian, she would have no hesitation at all. This was her volition. She intended to tell this to everyone in the Dark World, and the Dark Lord. This was where her bottom line lay. Dark Flame Sage, Hua Yenting, what do you guys think? Lord Shaman looked toward Dark Flame Sage and Dark Saint asking, let's leave things as they are for now. We'll go back and consult Dark Lord. Dark Saint Hua Yenting replied. Only the Dark Lord could decide this matter. Although Lord Shaman's intentions were not pure, Yi Qingyao had also behaved poorly. Sure, Lord Shaman agreed. Yi Qingyao has betrayed the Dark Court. From now on, all current privileges will be taken from her. The punishment will be decided on after we report to Master. If it had been another person, Lord Shaman would have dealt with them on the spot and killed them. But as it was Yi Qingyao whom the Dark Lord was extremely protective of, without his orders, no one in the Dark Court dared to lay a finger on her, even Lord Shaman. Retreat, Lord Shaman ordered. At once, the frightening aura dissipated from the area. He turned around and went off, with the others following in suit, bringing the corpses with them. In the sky, Ling Long turned around to look at Yi Futian with a questioning look on her face. Come back here, Yi Futian said. Ling Long headed back toward the ground and landed beside Yi Futian. Elder brother, I'll go back first, Yi Qingyao shouted to Yi Futian. Her clear voice shocked everyone as they realized that the Reaper was a girl, and she was even Yi Futian's younger sister. She did not hesitate to betray the Dark Court for Yi Futian and kill those cultivators of the Dark World. Be careful. Yi Futian nodded. Yi Qingyao left with the cultivators of the Dark World. There were still many strong warriors by her side. Yi Futian naturally understood Yi Qingyao's status after witnessing the events. If Lord Shaman could get rid of her quickly, he would not have gone to such extents. Dark Flame Sage and Dark Saint were on the fence and sided with no one. Yi Qingyao's position in the Dark Court was exceptional. Just that, today's happenings might result in a bit of trouble for Yi Qingyao. The cultivators were still reeling as the battle came to an end. Ziwei Imperial Palace did not lose out at all during today's battle. At the same time, the Dark Court suffered a significant loss with the demise of a giant of the Dark World, the leader of Infernal Divine Clan, and the clan's dissolution. On the other hand, the cultivators from Ziwei Imperial Palace suffered not a single loss. Supreme Swordlord put away his will and came to Yi Futian's side. That lass is thoughtful. She killed them on purpose. Yeah, Yi Futian nodded. Obviously he knew that. This time around, the people who had died were no ordinary people. They included the direct disciple of the Dark Lord, and will most likely attract his attention. If you had continued killing, you might incur his rage. She did this so she could protect you. If the Dark Lord wanted to do anything to you, he would have to get past her first, or she would betray the Dark World, Supreme Swordlord reasoned. She isn't scared of Lord Shaman, but worried that the Dark Lord would take you on personally. This lass is still as stubborn as when she was young. Yi Futian looked toward the disappearing voices. She probably wanted to let everyone know that if the dark world desired to have the Reaper, they could not lay a single finger on Yi Futian. Chapter 2748 An Invitation from the Dark Court. Chapter 2748 An Invitation from the Dark Court. After the cultivators from the Dark World left, the other cultivators that were around also left. Many people were awed. Ziwei Imperial Palace currently had a battle prowess just as strong as the Emperor's. At least it was so for the top stratum. Of course, when compared with the whole of the Dark World, the gap was still rather wide. There were still many other powerful figures in the Dark World, and they had made progress in the relics, like the ancient god clan from the Divine Prefecture. If the Dark Lord commanded all the forces in the Dark World to assemble and attack Ziwei Imperial Palace together, Ziwei Imperial Palace might not withstand the battle. But yet again, the cultivators in Ziwei Imperial Palace had made tremendous progress in a short amount of time. If given a bit more time, how much further would they have improved? Once Yi Futian entered the Imperial realm and became an emperor, the world would have gained her 8th superpower. Yet, the path to becoming a great emperor was not easily conquered. Yi Futian would probably require many more years before he reaches that stage. From the beginning, many great cultivators have been chasing this dream, yet how many had succeeded? Of course, with all the changes that had taken place in the world, the chances of achieving emperor level had significantly increased. This world was headed for a revolution. From among Lord Shaman, Yin Gi Duga Wuxia, Dihao Ji Wudao, Yi Futian, and others more, who would be the first to reach their goal? Or would it be another more senior cultivator? Fang Xiyuan moved beside Yi Futian. He slightly lowered his head. Master, I was wrong, he admitted. Do you really think that you are in the wrong? Yi Futian questioned Fang Xiyuan. Fang Xiyuan raised his head to look at Yi Futian. Upon seeing Yi Futian's expression, he realized that his master knew him too well. Obviously, he still did not think that he was wrong to have killed his opponent. After all, it was the Dark Court who first started killing. They had also wanted to plunder their imperial arms, and if they did not kill them, they would have been killed. Just that, it resulted in an extremely unfortunate consequence, and brought trouble unto his master and Ziwei Imperial Palace when he offended the Dark Court. Many years ago, Third Brother taught me that there were many ways of reasoning in this world, but no matter how good the reasoning, it was still no match for a fist. Of course, there was nothing wrong with what you all did. If anything, it would be that we of Ziwei Imperial Palace are not as strong as the Dark Court, Yi Futian counseled. It was commonplace for people in the cultivation world to use their fighting abilities to settle all matters. If they had not displayed their prowess today, Lord Shaman would not have let them off, but carried out a massacre instead. What's done is done. Go back and practice more. Yi Futian dismissed him. Yes, master. Fang Xiyuan nodded. Indeed, he would have to get better. If not, master would have to bear the consequences if he got into trouble in the future. The cultivators from Ziwei Imperial Palace had all left and returned to Yi Imperial Palace. They had stirred up quite a bit of disturbance. The current Ziwei Imperial Palace was no longer just an ordinary existence, and their confrontation with the Dark Court must have gained quite a bit of attention. If the great emperors were not in the picture, Ziwei Imperial Palace was a force capable of shaking things up within the 7 realms. The following days went by like normal. For the Dark Court, the betrayal of the Reaper was enough to get the attention of the Dark Lord. Unfortunately, this matter would have to be reported to the Dark Sovereign. The days passed one by one as Yi Futian continued training quietly. He wished to break through the shackles soon. It had been years since he had got stuck, and had not been able to make progress for a long time. Of course, this was only in Yi Futian's mind. Many cultivators had been stuck on this plane even longer than his combined practicing years. There were even more who had not been able to move past this stage their entire lives. Many of the top cultivators had only been able to succeed after the appearance of the divine relics. That Yi Futian was able to get near this stage so quickly was due to his inborn talents and the gift of fate and luck. The divine ruler he had attained at the shrine of the Karura had helped him along this path. Yi Futian stood on the sky stairwell, within Yi Imperial Palace, while old Ma told him something. Yi Futian looked toward the distance, and soon a group of figures slowly approached them. They were cultivators from the Dark Court, and at their head was impressively the Dark Saint Hua Yenting. Hua Yenting looked up at the sky stairwell. Standing on the sky stairwell, he was surprised to sense a solemn will. He lifted his foot and started to climb up the stairwell. An aura leaked from his body, as if it intended to weaken the pressure imposed by the sky stairwell. As one of the highest-ranking characters in the Dark World, he could not afford to let himself be seen as weak over here. Yi Futian quietly stood at the top and watched Hua Yenting climb up, step by step. He did not move but just watched quietly, although he still exerted an invisible form of pressure. The both of them could be counted as acquaintances, but as the other party was from the Dark Court, Yi Imperial Palace's authority must be exerted. Yi Imperial Palace had imperial in its name, although he had yet to become an emperor. Even so, when cultivators below the emperor level came here, it was imperative to let them be aware of Yi Imperial Palace's might, no matter who they were. Finally, Hua Yenting reached the top of the sky stairwell, but was stopped by old Ma before he could continue. Hua Yenting frowned and looked at Yi Futian. "Please go ahead, Dark Saint." Yi Futian gestured him to come over. At once, the invisible pressure vanished. Hua Yenting glanced at Yi Futian and made his way over. He stood opposite Yi Futian and said, "Lord Shaman reported to the Dark Lord about what happened that day, and Yi Qingyao was summoned back to the Dark Court. You probably were able to tell that this issue was started by the Dark Court. I could even say that it was to target Qingyao. The Dark Lord most likely would have realized that too," Yi Futian replied. "This does not matter. The fact of the matter is that Yi Qingyao was willing to betray the Dark Court for you. She purposely openly showed her affiliation, which is a threat to the Dark Lord," Hua Yenting countered. "And so," Yi Futian looked at the other, "what did you come find me for?" "The Dark Sovereign ordered me to invite you over to the Dark Court," Dark Saint answered, causing Yi Futian to be taken aback. Why would the Dark Sovereign invite him to the Dark Court? Old Ma beside him was frowning deeply. He looked at Yi Futian with worry. He obviously felt that Yi Futian should not go with them. "How can I be sure that this was from the Dark Sovereign and not from you guys?" Yi Futian asked. Hua Yenting took out a dark jade slip and handed it over to Yi Futian. Yi Futian infused his consciousness within and was soon able to make out a presence that led to the appearance of an image of the Dark Sovereign. He was standing on the Dark Temple and conveying his order. Hua Yenting definitely would not be able to feign such an authoritative and divine air as that. "This is the order conveyed to me by the Dark Sovereign," Hua Yenting started. "As for whether you wish to follow it or not is up to you. Although we both know each other, if the Dark Sovereign wanted to finish you guys off, there would be no need for him to go to such trouble. We can disregard what happened before. But in the future, we hope that you will not choose to stand on the opposing side of the Dark Court." After he had finished talking, Hua Yenting left. This time, he flew through the sky instead, with the other cultivators from the Dark Court following after him. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.